Eubank Jr. signs with boxer and targets Alvarez fight. Now, in my head, I thought Eubank Jr. was already with boxer, but I'm wrong because he was signed with Wasserman before, and they were on Sky Sports. Boxer is also on Sky Sports, which is probably what caused the confusion for me. I wonder, do we have figures here? Do we have any figures here? 'Cause I'd be so interested to know how much they signed him for. It doesn't look like they've put any numbers in. Yeah, but Eubank Jr.'s one with an interesting career. You know, he's had a few losses, some worse than others. Who did he lose to? He lost first to Billy Joe Saunders. Who else did he lost to? Let's get his record up. Okay, let's get his record up. Let's have a look. But Chris Eubank against Canelo Alvarez. Oh, I'm not gonna get into it yet. Let's see. So Billy Joe Saunders' first loss. Oh, there we go. Then he lost to George Groves. Yeah, that's it. George Groves. Then he lost to Liam Smith, and that was such a bad loss for him. That was awful. His biggest win is probably past his prime, James DeGale. That's really it. Honestly, that's probably his best win. And I guess the revenge fight against Liam Smith, but Liam Smith isn't anything crazy like that. He should have beaten Liam Smith the first time round, in my opinion. But yeah, biggest win, James DeGale. Who else? No, there's really no one here. Yeah, there's no one here. So, but to be honest, if he can get himself a Canelo fight with that sort of career, then all the what's the saying? More power to you, brother. But yeah, he signed with boxer and he's aiming for that Canelo Alvarez fight. I'm assuming it'd be at super middleweight. Obviously, Chris Eubank's a small super middleweight at the best of times. He's really a middleweight. He's a small super middleweight, and Canelo's a fighter who's fought, won, and knocked out guys at light heavyweight. Honestly, I think if these two were to fight, I really think Eubank Jr. just gets his ass handed to him, to be honest. And I think he should probably retire after that, because he'll be 33-4. You've had a decent career. You've not won. You've won like them bullshit WBA interim world titles. IBO. You are. Oh no, he lost that. Oh, he lost. He didn't even win that. He lost that fight. Jokes. Okay, no, but he was an IBO super middleweight champion. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he won the IBO super middleweight champion, and then won that again. So he's a world champion. Not the most respected of world champions, but he's a world champion nonetheless. He should retire after that, because I'd imagine, what would that be? He'd get a couple million for fighting Canelo. I'd imagine Canelo would walk away with 15-20 million from that, depending on where it is, actually, because that would be a huge fight in the UK. They could probably do quite a big arena, because Canelo's a huge star, and Eubank Jr., the lead up to that fight, I can imagine him doing, a lot of antics to get get some excitement around it. I could see that doing some big numbers if it was over in the UK. I imagine it'll be in America though. I imagine it'll be in Vegas, but still, nonetheless, could be a big fight for both guys. I imagine, like I said, if it's at super middleweight, it'd have to be. I don't see Canelo going down to middleweight at this point in his career. And Eubank Jr. will happily fight a super middleweight for this sort of cash, to be honest. I can see Eubank walking home with 2 or 3 million potentially, and then Canelo walking with 15-20 million, and then, to be honest, with all the money Eubank earned over his career, plus this last 2 or 3 million, he'd be alright. I mean, unless he gambles it all away on poker stars, which he seems to like doing. If he can, carry on gambling on poker stars, then he might need to keep coming back, because that 2 or 3 million won't last forever when you're betting 100 grand hands with Neymar and shit. But interesting, but not going to be a good night for Chris Eubank Jr. I really think he'd get his ass handed to him quite badly by Canelo, and it'd be a bad enough result to where he would want to retire, because that would be the nail in the coffin for him, to understanding that he's just never going to be that guy. he's done. He's never going to be that guy. He's not going to be the next Mayweather like him and his dad was saying. At one point, early on in his career, when he was running through, these bums, to be honest, which is what they were. Time Booth, 11 and that's awful. Look at these records, 8-5. These records in boxing. If this was MMA, right? If this was MMA, then okay. These are somewhat respectable records, but you fight bin men, But this is pretty normal in boxing. I say that, but this is quite normal in boxing, You fight these guys, and then you keep just moving up a level until you find your level, until you face the Billy Joe Saunders and you lose. Then you go back to the drawing board, build it up again. Then you build your way back up to like another world title fight. George Groves, you lose again. Then build it up, and then this wasn't even a world title fight. Losing to Liam Smith, that was bad. That was really bad. But you thought Liam Smith lost. Got the rematch. Luckily managed to win that time, but he's really on the back end of his career. But to be honest, so is Canelo. But Canelo's still out here, he's still winning fights, still dominating the divisions, multi-weight world champion. And what I really like about Canelo is, he's definitely cut. He's one of the last of a dying breed. He's cut from a different cloth. Started his career at welterweight, junior welterweight. He won world titles at every weight division, moved all the way up to light heavyweight. You don't get that often, especially nowadays. Back in the day, it's probably a bit more common because you would see guys wanting to move up, guys like Manny Pacquiao. But, even Manny Pacquiao was one of a kind, but, there we go. If that fight happens, easy night for Canelo, and he walks away, 20 million quid richer. And Eubank gets his face beaten for a bit, and he walks away, 2 or 3 million quid richer. Hey ho, we'll see.